How's it going, YouTube? I know it's been a little bit since my last Dell video, and I didn't expect as much interest as there was in that video. So we're back with another Dell budget gaming PC build. In today's video, we're going to be featuring a Dell Optiplex 3050 with a 7500 to harvest some of our parts from. In addition to the Dell Optiplex 3050, we're going to be using the new Machinist LGA 1151 motherboard. With the motherboard, we're going to be using a 600 watt Thermaltake power supply. We are going to be upgrading the Dell to an M.2 NVMe, which is a silicon power 1 terabyte. To cool the 7500 i5, we are going to be using a Thermalright 120mm AIO. This AIO includes RGB. We are going to be recasing this motherboard and 7500 in a Corsair 4000X RGB. Now that we have more space available with the Corsair 4000X case, we are going to be including an RX580 Surlow. This is the 2048 Stream Processor Edition, which is a slightly cut down version of a full RX580. To start today's build, we're going to have to begin installing some standoffs on the motherboard and installing the motherboard into our case. So we will begin doing that now. We're going to start by installing the back plate onto the motherboard. Alright, just checking whether or not there is a metal backplate already pre-installed. It does look like in the instructions that you will not have to remove that. Right here it says that you basically leave that on. So I will quickly install all of the screws and the standoffs for the Intel 1151 socket, and we will be ready to install our AIO once we get the motherboard installed into the case. Get the back plate opened up. It looks like the back plate is directional, so this will probably face backward like this. It has a branding on it. So then with that, we will need to install F. It says the standoff screws that they list as C, or the standoff plate is C and then the standoffs are E. So we will get E installed. And then we are going to need bushings F, which are smaller bushings. So probably these F. Get those securely snugged down. And then we will install the back plate, it looks like, and G on the opposite side. So the best way to pick this up is by the 20 pin and the IO. Maybe best to just leave it like this. Carefully insert this through. Luckily no adhesive is needed. Some back plates you will need adhesive, which can be a little unusual. There we go. Alright. That flip back over and we will get the bushings installed on this side. And I presume it's going to be these, which are G. Oh, we actually might need different ones. It says G. Okay, so we need these G. They don't look like they're side specific, so we will get those installed. Let's just go back and be sure. G. Yep, it's definitely these. Now we are going to be installing the rails. It would look as if the rails are running across the socket this way. Oh. I need to adjust these a little bit. There we go. And it looks like they do in fact angle inward with the little lip. Oh, this one's a little crooked on the back side. There we go. Alright, now we are ready to install J, which is the beast. These do not quite look right. It says you installed J. Oh, these are I. I might be wrong. Yeah, I'm wrong. These are J. Okay. So, and they go with the Phillips head facing up. We'll do them in a square in a star pattern crossed. This one is a little finicky. I need to push that bar down a little. There we go. So now I need the same deal. And once we have these firmly down, get them pretty snug. Alright, next we will be ready to install our AIO. And from that stage, we will move to moving the motherboard into the case. The next thing we're going to do is install the motherboard into the case. But first, we're going to install the I/O shield. We're going to do that by simply popping it in. Sometimes they can be a little difficult. This one seems to be pretty fair. I think that is it. Now we will test fit the motherboard into the case. This one is a smaller motherboard. It only has 4 standoff positions. Oh, it looks like there may be some things I need to do with this motherboard first. Oh, I think I got it. That one was not the easiest to get in. I think we got it. So we will try the motherboard in here one more time and we should be in business. You gotta angle it a little bit downward. Make sure we're lined up. I think that is it. So we will get some screws in that and we will be ready to go. Now this motherboard only takes 4 screws, so we will start up top. This is usually the one I like the least. There we go. Hopefully not too much trouble. You don't want to over tighten these. So get them nice and snug to start. You'll want to go in that cross pattern. And one thing I made a mistake on was the standoff positions actually had to be flipped so the studs face upward, not down inward. So I did have to do that off camera. I flipped those 2 posts so the stud faced upward as it should. So make sure that's squarely seated in there. It's looking pretty good. Next we will move on to getting our CPU installed. Got one more screw to go. Alright, last screw. And guide it down in there. Snug that one up and check across from it. Needs a little bit more. Sure everything is snug and we are ready to go. We will move on to harvesting the CPU from our Dell Optiplex. Within our Dell Optiplex, we have our 7500 under our stock cooler, which we will now begin to remove. But first we will harvest the DDR4 memory out of this computer, simply by releasing the latches. You guys pretty much know the deal. Pretty easy. This is Kingston memory. It is 2 8GB modules. Looks like it is listed for $26.66. So we will see what we get on a new motherboard. We'll place those right over here. So again, another Kingston module. And now we will remove the cooler. So we're just gonna go across. I don't think this cooler is going to give us too much issue. I have in fact used this computer a little bit for other testing. I have repasted, so I know this is a good CPU. This should have newer thermal paste on it and shouldn't give us too many issues in removing it. Should be getting pretty close. Not really sure which one's left hanging on. Oh, it is this one right here. There we go. Disconnect our fan. There we go. That facing up, and now we have our 7500, and I will quickly wipe that off with some iso alcohol. You don't need too much, just enough. This is pretty new thermal paste. Like I said, I repasted it so it comes off pretty easy. I'll dry it off a little bit there. Little globs off. All right. Make sure our hands are nice and dry, and we will unsocket this chip. Carefully, a little thermal paste, but there is our 7500. So we will set that off over here to the side. We'll have to clean it up a little bit more. And close this socket up. And then I will also close up this system. And one of the reasons that we upgraded from this system is the CPU is still pretty okay for gaming, but we didn't have any room down here to add a larger graphics card. And the plans in the future are to upgrade beyond the RX580 that is in this system. So in order to do that, you need a little bit more room. Close that back up and protect the socket, and we will get that stored off to the side. So I've actually run into a small issue that I didn't foresee, is I cannot open this socket with these posts installed. So we're going to try to take off the lower rail and see if that will give us access to the socket. Looks promising. So now, simply, we'll have to take them both off. It isn't a big deal, but it is interesting to note that if you are doing a build like this with this Thermalright AIO, you will need to socket your CPU or take the bars back off, which is not a big deal, but we are going to have to redo that. So you will simply open up the socket. This one, normally these are in the socket in the jacket part. Make sure all of our pins look good. We will clean off our 7500 just a little bit better. There's some thermal paste on it, but it will definitely go to good use in the future. We'll get that just cleaned up a little bit better. Have it all over my fingers. And what you're going to want to do is line up the little arrows just like that. And we should be installed. Now we will see if the back plates are going to be difficult to reinstall. So get the top put back on. That one looks pretty easy. Not too bad of a hindrance, but it is worth noting that you will need to socket your CPU before you install that. So we are now ready to look at installing our AIO. Install the AIO into the case. I recommend first doing this by installing the radiator into the top. Top position is usually the best for pump placement and also to get rid of heat. To begin doing this, it's really best to kind of set the pump head off to the side, and we will want to kind of position our radiator where we will want it. And then we will get a couple screws in. Now that we have our AIO fully installed, we are going to install thermal paste onto the CPU and get our water block installed. With the Thermalright, they included this TF7 Thermalright thermal paste, so I'm going to use that. Normally I use Corsair, and I know there's a lot of controversy over how to apply it and in what pattern. I usually do an X. This applicator is not great to give you. So today we're going to do a little bit more of a smudge. You can get it to stick. It certainly isn't as nice as the Corsair stuff going on. That's probably plenty for this application. More than enough, I'm sure. Now we will get our water block installed. So do not forget to peel these off. Now we will hold the wires up and get that lined up. One last thing, let's be sure on our instruction manual that there is nothing else that we need to do for shims or anything else like that. So we installed our thermal paste, and now it looks like we are pretty much ready to go. The next page goes on to AMD installation. So we are ready for our installation. It's always good to double check. Same way as these bars, I had to go and I double checked. So we will get this lined up. Oh. Feels pretty good. Maybe we'll go to a screwdriver down here just for accessibility. Don't want to get it all the way down. Try to keep even pressure. Give it a little wiggle. Feels pretty firm, but there's a little bit more. These screws, you'll feel them start to tension. That one's pretty close. This one needs a little bit more. You don't want to over tension them. Still wiggle just a little bit. A couple more for good luck. There should be plenty. Now we will feed our pump controller and RGB to the back. Moving from the AIO, we are going to install our Kingston 8GB modules of RAM for a total of 16. The listed speed on this RAM is 2666. Make sure we have both of our lanes open. We are lined up, and then we're going to push down evenly until we hear the click. Didn't give us a very satisfying click, but they are both seated. Sometimes you don't get as good of a click. Let's see how this one does. This is another Kingston 8GB module. As I stated, this PC is going to have 16 gigabytes. It's a little difficult to line up with the AIO in there. There we go. Double check. Push down evenly. That was a little better click. All right, those are definitely seated in well. And now we can move on to, I believe, our power supply. Now we will be installing our Thermaltake 600 watt power supply. I usually like to install these with the fan facing upwards, as a lot of other people have stated on YouTube. It keeps a lot of dust out of your PC, and there really is no cooling downside. So we will get that snug in there. It's a little difficult to do on its side like this. You should probably do it with the PC case upward, standing. Get these last couple screws in here, and then we will get our motherboard plugged in, and we will be nearly ready to begin cabling here. Still have a few more steps to go. We need to put in our M.2 and our graphics card. And now that we have most of our fans hooked up, we are going to install our M.2 and our graphics card. Fortunately for this build, I need to order a couple more fan splitters. I think only my top fan is going to work, and I also had an issue connecting the RGB of the AIO to the RGB controller of Corsair. It looks like they use a different pin setup, so I will get on Amazon and order an adapter for that, and hopefully we will get all of them synchronized and working together. So we will get our M.2 installed real quick. M.2s are pretty easy. They usually just have a tiny little screw, which can be easy to lose. So we don't want that to go anywhere. So we'll get our tiny little screw out, and then M.2s, which in this build we are using a Silicon Power 1 terabyte with a fresh install of Windows. And then to install your M.2, you're simply just going to slot it into the little drive bay, and then you'll usually want to kind of push them down with your finger. Unfortunately, my screwdriver is not magnetic, so it's a little difficult to get it started. But it looks like that was no real trouble. And we got that in. You always want to make sure they're fully slotted. In the end, it's easy not to get them all the way inserted. So next we will get our graphics card installed. And for this build, we are using a RX580. This is the 8 gigabyte, but it is the 2048 stream processor. It is a slightly, I guess, reduced version of the full RX580. I'm not sure if they bin them or how they select them, but it's just a slightly cheaper version. And now with our M.2 installed and our 2 slots removed, we are ready to install our graphics card. So to do that, we're simply going to line up the slot. Make sure your lane is open. The little white thing is pulled to the right. And we're gonna simply push down. There we go. All right, and then we'll get our thumb screws reinstalled. There we go. And then we will simply connect our PCI power. I think we're gonna want to use the bottom one. It doesn't really matter. There we go. And we'll zip tie that down there. Make it look a little better. Maybe something like that. We'll zip tie it. And then we will be about finished. But that should pretty much conclude our build. And we will check to make sure it posts. Alright, let's see if it posts. Where's the power switch? Oh. It's chugging. Oh, lots of RGB. All the fans are going too. But no RGB on the back fan yet for some reason. So should have done that. Oh, Machinist. That's a post. That's the motherboard. It's doing RAM training right now. Oh. Machinist. Make it a good post. No way, like right away. There it is. There it is. First try. So we'll have to sort out the back RGB. We'll also have to, well, I can feel the pumps going. That's a good sign. But all the fans are working. Pump fans working, that's the most important one. All the front fans are working. Sweet. Good looking PC. And we're back after a few days, YouTube. We had to do a couple installs and updates. I worked on getting the RGB working. I got it mostly working on the fans, but I could not get the RGB on the AIO working. It still needs an adapter for the ARGB. That should easily go to the Corsair hub, and then that RGB fan will work. I also ended up removing the fourth Corsair fan that I added that I just had laying around. I didn't have another fan splitter, so I just took that one out. I included the 3 fans that come with the 4000X case, and I also had a little video of it posting. I'll try to get some benchmarks here at the end, but thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content, and we should have a few more build videos coming in the future. Thanks again for watching.